Okay. Hey, everybody. We're going to kind of give it a couple of minutes to allow people to enter in the session. My name is Erin Green, by the way. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm going to be presenting for this breakout session for REAP. But I'm just going to give it some time so that maybe a couple minutes just so people can come into the room before I get started. So, and if you want to, I think in the meantime, you can definitely use the chat function to introduce yourselves if you want to the other people in the room, like let us know who you are, where you're from. Like I said, I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes before I start the presentation, and then we'll go ahead and get started. But if you don't know where you're supposed to be, you're in the Seeking Safety and Protections for LGBTQIA Students at Religious Colleges breakout session. And I just got a question. Okay. So there is a comprehensive list of taxpayer-funded religious schools who are not LGBTQ friendly, and that list would be on, I'm gonna give you the website link, campuspride.org. So an organization called Campus Pride would have that list. Okay, and I think enough time has passed for us to go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna share my screen in a minute. And okay, let's do a couple of housekeeping things. So we have Q&A. If you have a question kind of percolating about anything about religious exemptions or queer students going to religious colleges or anything like that while I'm speaking, go ahead and write it down in the Q&A so that by the end of the session, we'll kind of have all of these questions or thoughts accumulated, and then we can go through them, or I can go through them together with y'all. In addition, I've never done a presentation before where I haven't seen the faces of the lovely people I'm speaking to. So just a little bit of grace would be wonderful while I'm doing this. I wish I could see y'all, but we'll do the best we can. But I'm grateful that you're here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Sorry for all my wild icons. It looks pretty wild. Okay. So again, for those who are attending, this is the Seeking Safety and Equity for LGBTQIA Students at Religious Colleges. My name is Erin Green, and my pronouns are she, they. I'm the campus and alumni organizer for REAP. I'm an affirming biblical scholar and LGBTQ activist. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies from Azusa Pacific University and an M.Div from San Francisco Theological Seminary. My specialties are in the entire Christian biblical corpus with an emphasis on the Hebrew Bible, the ancient Near East, exegesis, and how to employ various hermeneutical methods. My passion is helping those excluded by the church to heal from spiritual abuse and trauma by navigating the biblical text in restorative ways. But I'm best known for my work in supporting LGBTQ students on conservative religious campuses, and I've been doing this work for over 6 years now. So who we are at REAP. REAP stands for the Religious Exemption Accountability Project. And we will talk about later in the session through the PowerPoint slides what exactly a religious exemption is. But what we do at REAP is empower queer, trans, and non-binary students at more than 200 taxpayer-funded religious schools that actively discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity expression. Through civil rights litigation, documentary film, oral history, research, and public policy, we work towards a world where LGBTQ students on all campuses are treated equally with safety and respect. Every day, queer and trans students are discriminated against and abused at religious universities. So the main purpose of this breakout session is to inform these LGBTQIA students and alumni attending religious schools, if you are here in this room, or if you know anybody who does, that REAP exists to protect you and to keep you safe. We do this by showing you how to organize with other students and other student groups. We tell you what your rights are. We offer pastoral care and support, and demonstrate to you how to file Title IX and accreditation complaints on your campus. We also wish to inform allies and other members of the LGBTQIA community why this particular issue is pressing and urgent by using statistical information and reasons why queer and trans students attend religious colleges in the first place. And that will be the next section that we go through. Oh, and my PowerPoint is sticking a little bit, so I apologize for that. We're gonna go way back. Okay. So one of the biggest questions I get asked at REAP, or that we all get asked at REAP, is why are queer and trans students at Christian universities in the first place? How do they wind up there, and why don't they just leave? If it's so bad, why do they stay? So these are the main reasons why we find LGBTQIA students at religious schools. Students between the ages of 17 and 24 are simply not financially independent of their families, and they rely on them for funding and help with college tuition, as well as funding for housing, food, etc. Students also between these ages are dependent upon other resources for funding, including financial aid, student loans, etc., credit, all those things. In addition, many of the students that attend these schools that are queer actually are Christian, and they desire to have that faith remain intact, and they are navigating a really difficult space of faith and sexuality, and reconciling both of those critical pieces of their identities simultaneously. Desiring to be in a faith community should not be surprising at all. What's more is that the families of these students are often very staunchly conservative and Christian themselves. And sometimes the student has been immersed from birth into conservative Christian ideologies. And they might even believe the same things that their parents do and hold to those same values while intentionally remaining closeted and believing that being LGBTQIA is a sin. So this is probably the biggest one. Most LGBTQIA folks don't even discover or realize that they're gay, queer, trans until they're actually in college. And if they discover this at a conservative Christian university, this makes that realization all the more dangerous due to removal of basic human rights and non-affirming theology. There are limited safe spaces for the students when they realize this. Most administrators on campus also would counsel these LGBTQIA students toward their personal doctrinal beliefs and away from accepting the queer person's identity. This is kind of a side note, but this is in direct contradiction to what the American Psychological Association states and recommends. And ironically, about these schools, many of these Christian universities are actually accredited by the American Psychological Association, yet they do not even follow these strict guidelines to maintain that accreditation. The other piece here, Christian universities surprisingly will court anyone under the sun. This is just a cold hard fact. My alma mater is a private Christian university. There was no informed consent procedure about me being gay or me being queer. And it's, kind of a scary thing that they don't go through an informed consent procedure, making these students believe that they're desirable for these campuses regardless of how they may identify. Sorry, I have the chat pulled up and it's blocking my view. Oh no. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. I had the little chat bar blocking my view. Okay, so, all right, the big question, why don't you just transfer? If it's so bad, you're being discriminated against, all these awful things are happening and you're really struggling in this environment and space, why don't you just transfer? So it sounds so easy, but it's not easy. Transferring requires a considerable amount of uprooting and financial devastation. First of all, that requires a full logistical relocation, depending on where the student is located. And furthermore, transferring credits to another university is really honestly difficult. It prolongs the student's time in the undergrad system, which means that the financial burden of tuition is extended and graduation dates are delayed as a result. Not all universities will accept the full amount of credits being transferred to the new school. So just a little personal story. I went to Biola University and I underwent some very poor treatment there because I was a queer student leading an underground queer movement on campus. So I decided to transfer to Azusa Pacific University to finish my degree. And Azusa Pacific University did not accept all of the credits that I had already taken in undergrad. It extended my period of time in school by an extra year. So I had to pay an extra year's worth of tuition just to even be able to do that. So transferring is really not a good suggestion for someone. It's not really fair. It's not really viable. And that's something that we need to, I think, really think about when we're asking these questions or people ask them of us. So that's that piece. And my thing is sticking again. It's okay, we'll get through these technical difficulties, y'all. Okay. So what's the real question we should be asking? Instead of like, why are queer and trans students at Christian universities? The question we should be asking is, how can we support LGBTQIA students in these spaces who very often have little, if any, communities at all to support them? Many times they remain closeted. Statistically, it has been demonstrated that against their heterosexual peers, queer students have much higher rates of isolation, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and risk for substance abuse. Outing themselves on campus is dangerous. The threat of reparative therapy counseling or conversion therapy is still very real on these campuses. The threat of having scholarships removed or positions removed is real. The threat of expulsion and being outed to parents is real. The threat of losing resources to live and thrive is real. So again, the better question is, how can we support based on all of these facts regarding queer and trans students in religious schools? Okay. So this gets to how specifically is REAP working toward changing the system? How is REAP addressing these issues? Well, one of the ways is REAP's class action lawsuit that was filed in April of, that should say 2021, on behalf of 33 LGBTQ students. It's now over 40 students who are attending or have graduated from religious colleges, demands that the Department of Education, this lawsuit demands that the DOE stop granting exemptions to religious colleges. Our lawsuit, if successful, will ensure that Title IX functions as it was intended, that all institutions, both private and public, respect and protect their LGBTQ students as a prerequisite to receiving federal funds. In other words, in order to get federal funding to run your school or taxpayer dollars, they have to use Title IX protections for every student, even queer and trans students. There's like a timing thing on this or something. If I wait longer than a minute or something, it's gonna stick. Okay. So sorry, y'all. Okay, so this is the Title IX law. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This is the Title IX federal civil rights law passed in 1972 that ensures protections against discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or institutions that receive federal taxpayer money. However, under the Obama administration, the US federal government issued guidance clarifying that this Title IX protection on the basis of sex also includes specific prohibitions from discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, so both of them. The protections of Title IX are generally intended to apply to all educational institutions, even private Christian ones, that receive federal taxpayer dollars. Okay. However, more than 200 taxpayer-funded religious colleges and universities have claimed a federal religious exemption from following this law. The exemptions allow these institutions to ignore non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ students specifically, while still being able to receive federal funding. So under the Biden administration, the US Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights has reiterated that the current civil rights law protects LGBTQ students at colleges and universities nationwide. So here you can see this addendum to Title IX: bullying, harassment, exclusion from school activities, and other forms of discrimination can interfere with LGBTQ students' access to safe and inclusive school environments. Federal law, however, requires school to ensure that LGBTQ students and other students have equal access to all aspects of schools' programs and activities. Okay, so just again to reiterate what a Title IX religious exemption is. These so-called religious exemptions that these private Christian universities apply for permit these 200 plus religiously affiliated colleges and universities nationwide to legitimize discrimination and abuse of their LGBTQ students while still receiving, again, federal funding and taxpayer dollars in order to be able to do so. Colleges and universities, despite some having a religious affiliation, are not churches. That's what we want to reiterate at REAP. They are taxpayer-funded educational institutions who are open to the public, and as such should be subject to the same non-discrimination laws as everyone else. This is what we believe at REAP, and this is what we strive to do through all of the actions that we take. Beyond the lawsuit, we also do student organizing. And I did forget to mention at the beginning of this is if there are some of you here who are actual students at religious colleges and want to let me know that, please do. I would love to know all about you, where you go, and how I can help. If you don't want to do that, if you want to stay anonymous, especially on this platform, I will give you my email at the end of this session, and you'll be able to have access to me anytime you need for anything at all. But we do student organizing. That is mainly what I do as a campus and alumni organizer. So in addition to the lawsuit, REAP also works directly with current underground and overground LGBTQ student groups at religious colleges. The difference between underground and overground. Depending on the school, depending on its location, how safe it is to be actually out on campus, there are a lot of underground groups that have to stay anonymous and protected. There are some other situations, for instance, at Azusa Pacific, my alma mater, where a lot of the students can be out and open overground, but they still have Title IX religious exemptions. They still get discriminated against and things like that. So some college locations are less severe than others. And that's the reason for that language. We help them organize. We help them navigate conversations with administration to troubleshoot any next steps and plan direct action organizing. In addition, we show them how to file Title IX and accreditation complaints. This is a measure of protection that these students can take if they want to while they're at the school, in order to let the school know that that even though they might have a Title IX exemption, that there's still value in filing a Title IX complaint, and there's certainly value in filing an accreditation complaint. And if you're here and as a student, or if you are a student or a former student and you're interested in accreditation complaints specifically, just please let me know. So this is just like kind of wrapping up, like this is a short session. This is a lot of dense material about laws and litigation and Title IX, federal government statutes and things like that. I wanted to leave a lot more time for interaction, especially if we were going to be in person. But I realized, we all know now that we can't physically be together. And I'm grateful for the safety protections that QCF put in place. But what I want to also reiterate is what we promote beyond just the activism that we do at REAP. So we promote belonging through our work to radically include and protect queer and trans students at religious universities. We also practice hospitality by fully welcoming these students, not just Christians, but all religions under our wings of protection. We connect beyond disagreement by working with non-affirming administrative networks at these universities to promote healthy dialogue and change. We share our true, authentic selves by being radically authentic in the face of opposition, despite the consequences. We strive for reconciliation by attempting to demonstrate to these schools the value, worth, and dignity of their LGBTQ communities. We pursue anti-racist outcomes by specifically uplifting and prioritizing BIPOC members of the queer and trans community. We work toward equity by championing LGBTQIA belonging in spaces that would otherwise reject them. We strive towards dismantling the systems which oppress them within the institution to promote equality for all. So if you're an ally and there's like, or even if you're not an ally, if you're a queer or trans person and you want to be a part of the movement, this is where my email drops. You can always reach out to us and reach out to me. There are tons of ways to support. We can connect you with student groups depending on where you're at. We can suggest other ways to support, like showing up for a protest, or even if you have a space that LGBTQ students can use to gather from schools, that would be wonderful. We are also on all of the socials at REAP_LGBTQ on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. One of the biggest things that you can do to help this movement is to help educate your friends, especially about why queer and trans students are at religious schools in the first place. Because that, like I said during the presentation, is the biggest question that we get asked, like why are they there? And you can also help educate them about Title IX religious exemptions. I am happy to share any information, and we also have on our website at www.thereap.org resources and tools about Title IX. If you want to kind of, just beef up your knowledge on Title IX and what that means and how does that apply to students at religious schools, our website is a great resource, and I would also not mind sharing this PowerPoint with you either. We welcome donations. We do our work in litigation pro bono for all of the plaintiffs that we help, over 40 of them. But the most important part that we are interested in is just people knowing about us, knowing that we're here to protect queer and trans students at religious schools, and letting them know we exist. We're a unique organization. We're the only ones doing what we're doing, with the exception of a former organization I used to work for called Breakout, which is on hiatus right now. So pretty much REAP is it doing this work. So it's very important work. But that's it. That's basically the presentation. Again, I wanted to keep it short and not dense for folks, because kind of latching on to all of this information is a lot, and processing it is a lot. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen unless there are people who want this stuff up, or I can share it with you later. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If there's questions or anybody who wants to bring anything up, or if you're mulling over anything at all, let's talk about it. All right. So, okay, so Jen is asking, thank you for the work y'all do, so important, thank you. Would you consider creating a list of queer spiritual directors for students to refer to if they're looking for a safe space to share their journey? Okay, so I just have a, do you mean, I have a clarifying question for Jen. Do you mean, do you mean counselors, like therapists, that kind of thing? Or do you mean creating a list of queer spiritual directors that are like maybe at these campuses already? So if you could clarify that. But yes, I think I get like the gist of what you're saying. And I think that this would be a wonderful thing to do for sure. And I'm gonna keep this question actually in my notes. Okay. It looks like Benjamin, oh, can't see the main chat. Oh, that's really helpful, Benjamin. Okay, so Benjamin says that they can't see the main chat for some reason, but they work for an LGBTQ affirming ministry and do a lot of programming around that. Alum of Spring Arbor and Southern Michigan, and happy to connect with Midwest students or leaders. That's awesome. Thank you, Benjamin. Okay, so not therapists. Okay. Spiritual directors would be more like companioning with someone as they share their journey with God. Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a wonderful resource. That's something that I can definitely talk to the team at REAP about to see if we can compile a list like that, because I think it would be really helpful to disseminate that to students. So thank you for that question. Okay, answer live. Okay. Just figuring out how to use this. All right. Is there anybody here who is a current student at a Christian university or a religious institution right now, or is everybody pretty much like out of it, or not, having not attended a religious school? Don't see anything in the chat. Okay. So it looks like, I mean, we've had Q&A open for like a little minute, but we can leave it open just in case. Oh, cool. Awesome, Emma. Emma says they're working at a group now that helps create an environment for queer students. That's awesome. If you need any help, please do let me know with any of that. So, and the QC, the lovely QCF host, what was your experience like navigating the Biola Underground? So I didn't create it. It was created by friends of mine before I had started at Biola University. But I came to the school, actually, I chose Biola because they had a queer underground movement. Because again, my major was biblical studies. So if I was going to go to a private Christian university, I wanted to make sure that the one I chose had some kind of queer community there. And Biola just so happened to have that. Well, the people leading it were actually moving and they asked me to take it over. And I had no experience in activism. I was a baby queer myself, like just came out. I had no idea what I was doing, but they asked me if I could lead this underground movement at Biola. And I was like, you know what? Yes, I'll do it. And that's how I got started as an activist. But yeah, it was pretty wild. Like we did direct action demonstrations on campus. We shook things up. We talked to the president a lot and all different kinds of people at the university. We were trying to change policies. We were trying to make breakthroughs. It was really hard and but very fulfilling, and the community support was really amazing. So Lizzie, hi Lizzie. Lizzie says they're an alum of Eastern University, transferred from Taylor University. Okay. Had two pretty different experiences of navigating Christian campuses. I was involved as a student, but I haven't been as much since graduating. Do you know of any current activism going on that can be contributed to virtually? Yes. I will, Lizzie, if you give me your contact information, or if you find my bio or profile on Whova, here, I'm gonna type in my email. If you could send me that question to my email, because I would have to do some research, because we work with several universities and students at universities, but I would love to be able to see if we are indeed working with anybody from Eastern right now, because I can't off the top of my head remember if we are. But if we are, I can definitely let you know and let you know what's going on and how ways to help from a virtual standpoint for sure. Yeah, no worries. No worries. This is so strange. It's just strange not to be able to see people's faces. Okay, Benjamin asks, as a general question, do you have any insight on how alumni and supporters can support current students, especially for current students who have to be underground? Great question. They might not have access or knowledge or alumni that are out there to be supportive of current campus happenings. So this happens a lot, actually, and it's a wonderful question. So thank you, Ben, for asking this. One of the things I've seen a lot of alumni groups do is start Facebook groups or some kind of group on Instagram. And that is a way to, if you don't know any current students, that is a way to attract current students into getting connected with you. If there's some kind of hub, or if there's some kind of place that these students can look to go that are started by alumni, that's a super helpful way to get connected to current students and start supporting them. Especially like you said, if they have to be underground and they might not have access or knowledge. I'm trying to think of other ways that they can connect, but this is how I've typically seen it go down, at least on socials. Other ways is that you could connect with us and see if we know any of the current students, if we can directly connect you with them through our network at REAP, which we've helped quite a bit of people, quite a bit of alumni and current students get connected that way. So I hope that helps. But I would, if you start some kind of Facebook group or some kind of Instagram group, or like a page on Instagram, that has like been a huge way for current students to connect to alum. Okay. Any other questions? Cool, you're welcome, Benjamin, no problem. Anybody have any questions about Title IX or about Title IX complaints or how that works, or anything like that at all? Let me know too. If there are no questions here, like, please feel free and comfortable to reach out to me at REAP. I realize sometimes asking questions in a public space is hard, especially if it's like a topic like this. This is a really dense and charged topic. And yeah, if you feel more comfortable reaching out to me in private, that is completely fine. And I'm here for you and support you. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions. So if you have one, let it be known, because I think we'll close out so y'all can have some extra time or maybe pop into another breakout session if you wish. But I think it's a good time to close it out. And I'm super grateful that all of you came to listen. And yeah, this is a movement that gets very little support, unfortunately, because a lot of people just don't know and don't understand why queer and trans students attend Christian colleges. So we have to do a lot of public education in that area to let people know why LGBTQ students end up in these spaces. So I'm super grateful that all of you came. And if, again, you have my email, or if you need any information, I'm on Whova. You can click on my bio. I have the website up. I have my email there. I have all our socials there. So if you want to get in touch, please feel free to do that. Don't hesitate. But thank you so much for coming. And I hope you have a wonderful time at the Q Christian Conference. Thank you, Jen. I'm glad it was helpful.